everyone. Welcome again to another episode of the HR Club. Today, I'm joined by Sanam Rawal, who knows the startup talent game inside out. Sanam is a partner at Metamorph, where she spent the last decade matching ambitious talent with audacious founders. She's seen the hiring highs, heartbreaks of early stage startups, and isn't afraid to call BS on broken recruitment playbooks. Whether it's calling out safe hires, breaking myths about rock stars, or navigating the founder VC talent triangle, Sanam brings honesty, insight, and plenty of real talk. So buckle up. This one's going to be a masterclass in unfiltered hiring wisdom. Sanam, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome to the HR Club.
Thank you, Shivani. Very, very excited to be a part of this.
Cool. So we have so much to talk about. There's all things stories about talent, about founders, about VCs. But before jumping to all of those, I have more of a philosophical question to start off with. You've spent the last 10 years working with different startups. Before that, also, you have been into recruitment consulting space for quite some time. And it's been a huge difference in terms of where you started off earlier and then eventually as you have grown as a professional, as a person. How do you feel about this entire journey today?
I think about it very often, to be very honest, because it's a very, very unique one. I am pleasantly surprised by the way things turned out, but very, 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 very happy that my passion has led me to where I am today. It has been quite interesting to, from the start from university that I wanted to do recruitment because I was very excited to help people with their careers. I think it's a changing point of when a person starts their career, and I wanted to be involved in it. And then working with consulting companies, doing business development, landing my first client, recruiting for them, and then somehow being excited about technology, going into startup hiring, then moving into a VC, then setting up my own HR advisory firm. It's been interesting. It's been fun. It's been a lot of learning. I don't think, anybody in their 21 to 31 years old time could be exposed to the amount of things I have been, but very grateful and very, very, I think, surprised again, because I feel that nobody would think that a shift like this would lead to something so big, for me at least, because Metamorph is currently fighting and competing with the legacy brands which have been in the system for 20-30 years. So it's been quite thrilling to see.
Lovely to hear that. And I'm really excited for the journey that you have had and you will have over the next many years from here on. From there, let's rewind to the early career years of Sanam first. Before the hiring wars, before the founder therapy. I'm curious, over all of these years, what's one or maybe more than one hiring beliefs that you held early in your career, but that you have seen completely flipped on now?
I think one of the major ones that have flipped the most, there have been multiple, but one of the major ones that I think is that people with more years of experience can add the most amount of value. I absolutely do not believe it anymore. I think grit, passion, eagerness to learn, eagerness to deliver, ambition are traits that are more important than experience, in my opinion. This can fit in differently at different stages of a startup, but overall, if these traits are not there with someone who's a fresher or with someone who is, someone who's experienced who's coming in, I don't think they can give their 100%. I always used to think that, oh no, like, why are we looking at anyone under 3 years? It doesn't make sense. We don't want to look at it. And but then when we the more I got into working with early stage companies, story just ended happening in a way where the startup didn't have money, so we had to look at younger people. And then I realized that the ones who have been the younger people have been the ones who have added the most amount of value. I'll give you an example. My first hire when I joined Bloom Ventures, my first hire was a front end engineer with small case. We actually share our anniversary. It happened in 14 days of me joining, and we sort of have the same work anniversary within jobs. And within, I think, 7 years of being in small case, he ended up becoming the VP engineering there. And to be very honest, it was a very young hire for the experience that we had. But in my opinion, the traits were so strong in wanting to deliver and wanting to grow that I felt that that was the one that changed my thought process, saying that it's not necessary to always bring someone who comes with experience. I think these traits matter the most. I think this has been the most sort of flipped belief of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think we don't have to go too far in picking up examples for that. Your own journey is a testimony to how that belief stands contrary to what we're talking about. But glad that we could start this conversation on a very practical note where you could just share a story of a real incident that you have yourself been a part of. So from here, I know there's so much also so much noise in the hiring world because again, one of the beliefs that you have already talked about, which is very traditional in its way, but everyone claims to have cracked the code of hiring. But you are someone who, again, cuts through the fluff. So I would love to know, I mean, among all of these different sources, so people talk about LinkedIn, there's referrals, there is agencies, everyone claims to have the best hiring formula. What, according to you, is the biggest BS in traditional talent acquisition that you love calling out? Of course, we spoke about one, which was about this stereotype of having higher experience is the only good candidate to have. But what more?
My another favorite one is when a candidate says that they're looking for more growth opportunities. Big BS. The fact that a recruiter or a founder can't see through it and really ask the real reason of why a person is leaving their job really stands strong in terms of the way that the person is going to deliver in your company. And people don't do it. Like honestly, like for the longest time, every single profile that I have seen come in, it used to be like, I'm looking for growth prospects. I said, okay, but what do you mean by growth prospects? Is there something missing in your current org that you are not being able to deliver, or you're not liking? Or and you can have a genuine reason. I mean, money can be a genuine reason. It's a very important reason. I mean, that's why spending more time in office than we're spending with our families, because we are earning money. But it's just like people don't communicate honestly for me, and neither do the opposite person deep dive into it, and founders accept it. Like I have seen founders, and I have done trial and error in this situation where people have seen the profile and I have written that the reason is that they're looking for growth prospect, and the founder's like, yeah, okay, I'll interview. And I said, don't you don't you think it's important to learn a little bit about why before you get into the interview? Because what if it is money and the person is on, let's say, 35 lakhs, and the person is going to say, I'm expecting, and it's happened in front of my eyes, I'm expecting 50 lakhs, and you're going to get to know that after the interview and waste all the time. So I think that's a big BS. I think we need to do better in being able to understand from a human to a human level on why people make the decisions of moving jobs, and why is it important that their thought process needs to match the stage you are at. Because of anyone who's funded, they have the money to give to the right person, and that's fine. And honestly, a hike in the last 10 years, I've seen it doesn't really have to be a particular number unless the founder feels so and the founder wants you in. But it has to be more important on what kind of a thought process the person coming with. If the person is saying that I have two children, I need to put them into university, I need XYZ hike because I feel I can deliver, then it makes sense to stagger the hike in a way where you can see the person delivering for 3 months and then be able to take a call. Because if the person is delivering, then why not? But if you don't think from that process at the start, then you are going to end up not being able to hire the right people with the right mindset. Money mindset is not a problem, ambitious mindset is not a problem, but what is it that your stage needs right now? Do you need people who don't want to think, shouldn't be thinking about money, but should be thinking about experience because you're a Series A founder and the last 3 years are a growth stage years for you? Then it makes sense to bring in people who are aligned with you, saying that we are trying it out, we are in an experimental change, your shit is going to work, it's not going to work, I don't know. Or do you want people to say that this is what it is, this is how much my experience costs, if this is the value you want me to bring, this is how much I'm going to charge as an employee? But I think that we don't spend so much time at the start for this criticality, and I have called many founders out and said that this is really you need to change it, and this BS line of growth prospects needs to get out, and no one in Metamorph is allowed to accept it or use it anymore.
Fair. I mean, love that suggestion because as much as it is on us as recruiters, a lot of times I also hear candidates say that, okay, but is asking for money the wrong thing? That also is a notion that they have, that which is why almost everybody that we'll talk to, the first reason would be, in most cases, that oh, growth prospects, like you already mentioned.
Yeah.
So do you think the onus is on the recruiting side, the employing side, to make the people more comfortable, or what can they do to drive that conversation in a way that candidate actually opens up? Because there's still
Yeah.
this notion out in the market that of course people fear to say that, okay, I need more money, I'm not compensated rightfully,
Yeah.
or let's say I was let go for whatsoever reasons,
Yeah.
and may not always be that they were bad. There was
Yeah.
just different things not playing out, but people fear to say that. What do you think? How does your team handle it when it comes to things like these? Do
Yeah.
you nudge candidates? What's the right approach?
Absolutely. I think that this is where the whole, and I'm a big fan of this entire topic of AI and recruitment and stuff like that, because I've been for there for 10 years to see companies like Belong, who, have tried to sort of automate recruitment, go about it. To be very honest, as recruiters, we need to go onto a very human level, because you can't think of recruitment as transactional, priced, target driven consulting setup. That's not how it's supposed to be. And when you are into recruitment, you need to get into the human level of practically just having a conversation with someone. And it's an unfortunate pressure that everybody is in. The sales team is in the pressure of delivering numbers, the recruitment team is in pressure of delivering candidates. You don't have the time, so you're not going to get onto a level to ask Shivani, where are you in your life? Okay, yeah, I got your numbers, I got how much revenue you made, I got everything, but where are you in your life? What is that one thing that is going to make you forget about everything in your life and just deliver for the 100 days of you joining a company at your 100% optimal level? No one has ever understood that. And in my opinion, at least in Metamorph, what we try to do is, the aim is to be able to not talk to each other as an candidate and as a recruiter, but just talk to each other as two people trying to figure out the best for each other, and trying to sort of be in that place. And that is why whenever we mention the reason why someone is leaving, it is bigger than the paragraph, than the experience that the person comes with, because the aim is always to say, the founder needs to know what is the background of the person that they're coming. And especially or you obviously will know, in the last 5 years, the kind of shifts that every candidate has had has been pretty exhaustive, because there have been layoffs, people have been they've changed, many roles have been changed internally. They've been forced to leave, not from a layoff point of view, but multiple other ways. So there are many shifts that people have, and it's not necessary that someone who has had shifts needs you blanket sort of put a impression on it and say that, hey, this is not someone we want. So we make it a point to even talk to them to understand on why it happened, and always write the reasons down. So I think the major bit that is missing out is the pressure of delivering, because of which the recruiters aren't doing a good enough job, and the founders are not doing a again, because of delivering, no one is doing a good enough job in really evaluating on what kind of a team everybody needs to build. And I think that, hopefully, at least hoping, Metamorph is trying to change over the years.
Since we're talking so much about like founders, startups, do you think there's a certain best practice? So again, all of us, every recruitment leader or anybody who's in the recruitment space you talk to, everybody will have enough of these points to share about, oh, best practice this, best practice that. Do you think there's some so-called best practice that actually ends up hurting early stage hiring than add value to it?
Oh yeah, pedigree hiring. Big
Hmm.
no. Big no. Okay, so again, it's difficult to get through founders and really be able to explain it to them. But early stage founders specifically need people who are who want to aggressively deliver at the core of their body, in my opinion. Which means that, and again, you and me, both of us can relate to it. I know you personally, so I know that you are someone who is very, very keen and very ambitious on delivering. And it doesn't matter on what kind of a background you come with or where you studied. Similarly, versus me, I don't have an MBA. I have a PGDM in Wellinkar. But my eagerness to deliver and grow and be a part of something big is so, sort of connected to my soul, that it is important for me to be able to be in that place. But the minute you put a pedigree, and if I or if me or you are not from an XLRI, nobody is going to be able to understand the amount that we want to be able to do in our lives. This, in my opinion, is a bad one. And I don't think we should, early stage founders should be thinking about it as well. I think pedigree comes in better when you are in a series B plus startup where you have cracked the code of your product, your GTM, your culture, your employees, and you need people to expand your services and expand your products into India and geographically. Otherwise, that is where I feel that these people do a better job. But if you are going to be that founder who's going to say that I have just raised money and I want only people from IIT, then, in my opinion, you're losing out on the people who actually would be able to grow you. And most of the times, these founders themselves are not from pedigree. So to be very
Yeah.
honest, I am, very much just questioning their overall understanding. And also, I mean, it's not really their fault. This is the sort of the overview that comes to them from investors and from everybody else who says, "Okay, no, everybody, my first 50 hires were for only pedigree." And while that is great, there can be a balance in my opinion. But founders need to learn, because at the starting they don't have HRs. So
Yeah.
founders, they don't have so many people to advise them. But founders need to learn to look through pedigree and look more at the softer aspects, at least for the first 30 team members, because those 30 are going to be the one who are going to be there for the longest. Their experience should not be valued as per the pedigree they come with, but more in terms of the real work that they are capable to do. I think that capability bit needs to be looked at a little bit more stronger.
I'm so glad you brought that example up because that was the immediate next thing I had in mind to ask you, that founders go for these safe hires,
Yeah.
ex-Fang, ex-McKinsey, best hires to make, but it eventually, how much success does it really add to them? Not sure about that. In fact, I mean, very recently I was chatting with a friend who's helping his founder hire, and this person doesn't come from a hiring background. They're
Yeah.
just a function head. And because, again, like a small team, few people doing everything, and they were
Everyone.
like, okay, can you advise me? Can you help me do something? Because I'm looking at all of these people from, I mean, again, without naming the institute, but premium institutes, and all
Yeah.
of them are getting rejected. How can that be? So
Yeah.
that was a debate that we had, that, okay, I mean, but why do you think you only go for these
Yeah.
XYZ institutes and you'll see success? That is not going to happen.
But also these people who come out of these institutes already are, and which is again now that let's, I don't know how many things I can change in this
Yeah.
lifetime, but if I would be given a chance, one of the major things I would like to change is the campus placements that are done with students from these institutes, because the first thing that they see are extremely structured companies. These
Right.
people are going into companies which have been there for decades, which like Infosys, and they have worked throughout that journey. You have HUL and things like that, and then suddenly, even from a engineering standpoint, right,
Yeah.
they've worked from larger ones, and then you suddenly have them being selected into a startup where, and especially again, it's very critical to evaluate the stage of your company. That's where the entire consensus changes. But at least until the series B, you cannot be thinking that someone from such a structured environment is going to do so well here. That is why one of the first things that we do, even when we are hiring for a, let's say, director of engineering, for example, or a product head, the first thing you need to be able to see is how many, and it's so simple that you can understand this as your code language. How many team members did you have? More than 5 team members means that you have pretty much delegated everything through, and your work has been more involved into advising them. But if you are a person who says that, yes, I had about 3 team members, and for example, or 2 team members, but more of my work was done in supporting XYZ, blah blah blah, you get into a system where you realize that these are people who are hands on. And that's why the first thing you need to see is whether the person is hands on. And someone who comes with a structured environment can never be hands on. It's not their fault. It's just that they've already been given a large team to be helping them out. So in my opinion, that really matters. Also, I think, if you have had someone who and this is, I speak to people every day who has have experience in startups and then have moved to a bigger company, and
Yeah.
they want to come back, and I'm like, why do you want to come back? And they said it's so slow, I can't get through the layers of acceptance that needs to
Yeah.
come in for a very small sort of need. And that's where the whole concept comes in, right? Like, having someone who is able to do everything at the start. Your first 50, 30 team members can't be people who say that, acha, yaar, I'm going to give this campaign out, or even from a non-tech point of view, right, I'm going to do this. You got to do it by yourself. So I think a larger sense of that is being able to find people who can understand the stage and the growth that you are at.
Right. I think the privilege of doing things fast without so many layers of approvals has just spoiled us all for good, of course. So, talking about like the stages of different startups and what's right at each of the stage. So, what do you think? What's your take on, let's say, when a startup has limited cash? So, of course, they have to hire. Now, should they hire a cost efficient but okay candidate for a particular role, or let's say they should wait out and then splurge on a rock star, whosoever that is in their eyes, or is it different? At it could be situational. What do you think about this?
Completely depends on the kind of hire you're doing.
Okay.
I think the founder needs to be very, very clear on what is the expectation of the person to deliver in the first year. If it is very core, business functions where the delivery has to be, where the delivery of whatever it is that you're getting out of the person is solely on this person, then I would say a rock star is important. But if this is a role where the person is coming in who is under someone else, who is being managed by someone else at a more junior to mid level, then it's okay to spend with a okay guy, because then the onus comes on the leader to be able to make the shift for them from an okay to a good or a very good. But a leader cannot, you can't expect the leader to make that shift for themselves, which means that to conclude, senior profiles wait for a rock star, someone who, and especially individual contributors who are responsible to lead particular important business functions at the growth stage. If you are at, then it is
Hmm.
important to do that. But people who are from mid and junior can be okay, as long as you have someone who is being able to ensure that they are going to shift them at a period of time from an okay and fulfill the gaps that they largely have. That is important, in my opinion. I don't think every hire needs to be a rock star hire, because then all the rock stars are sitting on your head looking to grow fast, and that's not something you will be able to do. So I think rock stars are needed at particular functions, and you need to have clarity on what that function is. Like, for example, like, if you're a series A founder, marketing is not the jumping need, sales usually is it necessary to get a rock star marketing head or lead? No, you can make do with a senior marketing manager. But is it necessary to get a rock star engineering product, or a rock star sales, or a rock star ops if you are B2C? Yes, absolutely. So I think that clarity needs to come in a little bit better.
Sounds good. Fair. Trying to pick another story extract. Do you have a memory of any incident with a founder where, let's say, a founder made a counterintuitive hire, but that turned out to be a game changer for them?
Oh, so many. I think one of the ones that is a very favorite one of mine is where a founder ended up hiring someone to. This was at the peak of founders realizing that they need someone beyond an EA, not from the admin side EA, but someone who can be responsible to suggest to them and give them data oriented, sort of suggestions on what and which area of the business needs help. This is when the whole chief of staff idea sort of came into the picture, and it was happening. It was like I was sitting on top of like 70 companies who were realizing this at the same time, and it was amazing to see. And one of the founders ended up hiring someone in ops at that time, and it was a B2C company, B2C fintech company, and the only job this person had was to be able to come and tell the founder that, take a look at how the ops is happening, but not from a product level, but more from a sort of how each team is performing level,
Yeah.
and how each layer of the work that is happening within the company is happening at the, sort of highest sort of way possible, in terms of delivery and in terms of quality. So this sort of, and I was very keen on being able to see, because I never seen a founder do this. And this ops person in 1 month was able to deliver data back elements to be able to show the founder that the marketing team is really, really not supporting the amount that is needed. Most of the customer data that is lying in the marketing team in terms of customer acquisition, which the sales team obviously is not being privy to, because the sales team is not being able to see it. And the first flip that the founder ended up doing, listening to the ops guy, was to sort of fix the marketing and use the data to be able to acquire the customers. And this like just absolutely sort of changed their sales overnight, literally
Yeah.
overnight, because they were sitting on the data and they didn't know anything about it. And this was a very unique, at that moment, a very unique way of being able to look at it. And thus sort of came into the picture my suggestion to all the other founders to be able to find someone who's actually looking at the way things are happening internally, a more elevated EA. Then sort of the chief of staff bit came. So that was one of the most interesting ones. Till today, I think I don't have, there are not many founders who are doing this. You
Hmm.
hire a chief of staff, but the chief of staff is more responsible for other things. We rarely have anyone who is looking at how optimally are your teams working internally beyond HR, like, more from a data point of view. I think that was a very interesting one.
Understood. Now, let's flip the lens a little bit. We've spoken quite a bit about hires, so now less about hires, a little more about founders. You've seen enough to know which ones are scaling smart, which ones are spiraling. Would you have in mind any, let's say, most toxic hiring habits that you have seen in founders that instantly makes you think that, okay, this startup is doomed? I know we have spoken a lot about, okay, what are these things that maybe are too stereotypical to look at. But here I'm speaking about hiring habits in terms of in the process or how they are doing things, the kind of conversations that they're driving, anything on those lines.
First one is more, which I see in founders, especially in the last 3 years,
Hmm.
3 to 4 years, the most, because the founders' age is getting younger and younger in terms of the kind of investments that VC funds and PE funds are making. But I think the first one is the superiority complex that they have in interviews when they start the interview in a way where it's me, irrespective of a level of role,
Yeah.
it's me who's hiring you and it's me who's going to give you money, so you are going to work for me. Big no.
Yeah.
It's an immediate sort of turn off, in my opinion, professional turn off possible, in my opinion, which makes me feel that this founder is, because it's very hard at the core to be able to change someone. See,
Yeah.
and then again, the space where Metamorph is, it's in a very advisory space, because we are working with around more than 25, 30 VCs. So the work is very non-transactional, it's more advisory. So when I'm trying to talk to a founder, I can talk and advise on multiple things, but can I advise on the core of the being of how the founder's personality is? No. So for me, one is that, which is, I many like VCs have invested in me, so why is it that I'm going to be at the same level as an interview, right? Which is very, very traditional. People used to do that in, like in these much larger FMCG companies. So in my opinion, one is this, which immediately makes me feel like, okay, it's going to be very difficult for the founder to attract the right kind of talent. I think the second one is more to do with, I don't know, and I can be called out on this majorly by most of my founders only, but I don't know if I feel it makes sense to ask make people ask for pay cuts. I just from a very human level feel that if someone is switching their comfort zone, their job, their location, and coming onto your company because you need them at whatever level, so asking them to take a pay cut to see whether they are willing to join you, in my opinion, is the worst way of being able to evaluate it. And I understand where the founder's coming from, that you want to see it, but a founder has also been an employee for the longest time. And have you ever been in a place where you have responded well when someone's asked you to take a pay cut? If you have, has there been a viewpoint of you, of someone telling you that, hey, we are a very early stage company, I need you right now, but in 3 months when we raise, this is the first thing I'm going to do, which is going to be giving you? That makes sense, that's fine, because you have a view on where you're going to reach eventually in terms of the money that you're going to get. But are you really telling me that you're not going to give someone an understanding of where they're going to be in 1 year and make them take a pay cut and let their lifestyle get affected? In my opinion, it's just not the right way to be able to connect to the employee and look after the employee. And I just feel that
Hmm.
there are better ways to be able to do it. But then again, uh,
Yeah.
you know how Indians are, so it's fun to evaluate and see. Yeah.
Yeah, fair. And I love both of those thoughts that you have. Absolutely resonate with both of those. On that, again, there's another thing where a lot of founders try to hire clones of themselves.
Yeah.
And while there are others who prefer other way around, according to you, which approach works better and why?
Again, print at different stages.
Hmm.
In an early stage company, when it's your first 30 to 50 hires, I am of the opinion that you need people who see eye to eye with you, who are similar to you, because you are at very early stages of growing the company, and the trust factor is very, very high. For that, I feel like hiring people who are similar to you is fine, and it works well. The minute you get into the mode of expanding and growing and reaching your second investment round, I feel that is when you need people who come from different thought processes, different perspectives, to be able to grow and expand your team. I know there are very conflicting ideas over here, saying that yes, and I've done this, I've spoken to a lot of founders about this to understand, because I'm curious on the psychological side of hires that are made. And but they say, oh, but the core of the product being built out is at the start, so if I don't get new perspectives at the start, how will I grow, or be able to add the value to the product? But I feel that skills needed to grow a product from day one can be managed, but the traits and the same level of expectation and growth that founders are looking for, if that is not there in the first 30 and 50, there's a misalignment of how they will see the coming years itself. The core team needs to be thinking similar. The expansion team and the CXO teams need to be thinking a little bit, should be opposites of you, because the first hires are not going to be your CXO hires. You're not going to hire your first CPTO, right? But when the CPTO comes, they should not be thinking like you, because you are not capable of thinking beyond a particular level of your company. You will need help to think beyond that afterwards. So 30 to 50 similar folks, above the 50, 100 more opposites would work.
Yeah, let's talk about another player in the hiring drama, which is the VCs. You have been very close to this space to understand it better. Their intentions might be good, but there's influence can change hiring priorities for the founders. How do you and your team navigate that? For example, let's say when it's about when the startup is under VC pressure, there's a lot goes into panic hiring than strategic hiring. How do you advise founders in these phases so that they don't get into the pressure of signaling maturity by, let's say, hiring execs like we were talking about, or hiring just from the premium institutes because it looks good, it might look good for the VCs? How do you coach them to resist that temptation?
It's so funny. It's like being sandwiched by two sides of a relationship. It is the most, in my opinion, the most difficult place to be at. I feel very personally that VCs don't understand the grassroots level of what is needed for the startup and for the founder from a hiring point of view. Particularly, I think they are great with connections, I think they're great with references, and I think they're great with advices that is going to help you expand. But for the first round of your first, like 1-2 rounds of your funding, I feel like there is a lot of discrepancy on what is expected by the VC versus what is actually possible by the founder on ground. That being said, one of the best advice that has come from interviews have come from the VCs. So again, judgment over the profile and the person is great. But what is needed for the startup right now from a gaps point of view, I think it's difficult. That being said, being an founder in the Indian startup industry, you need to have be more sort of level headed and strong on the ground in being able to deliver to the investor what you really want and what you really need to do. It's more like being able to take all the advice and then being able to sit down and have your core team be the people, because they are more on ground, they know what's happening every day, to be more in touch with what is it that you need specifically right now. It's very important. I feel like there can be a better explanation and a better thought process on how to put all of them together and stand up for yourself. I have seen many founders do it and it's worked very well for the founders. I have seen many founders not sort of take the advice from the VC, go their own way, burn their hands, and then come back and said, yes, this is what I should have done. But I think being able to communicate better to your investors and be able to tell them what is more in need is something that founders need to do a little bit more better today. But it can be a crazy circle to be a part of. You're new, you don't know what to do. Investors are telling you one thing, and then you suddenly have these group of mentors who are telling you something else. So it can be a confusing place to be. But I think lucky for us that the risk appetite is so sort of great for Indian founders and entrepreneurs, that I think that they figure their way out irrespective. Maybe some take some time, maybe some sort of need some people to help. But all in all, I think that you need to be the person as a founder to be able to say, this is what is more in need. And I think that communication is something that lacks most of the times, that founders eventually get better at when they realize the stages that they grow into.
And by the way, when it comes to early stage hiring, is there a template or do you customize for each startup? And if yes, then I mean, what is it based on? Because stage again is one, the kind of founder they are is another. There are multiple factors that come into the play, but what is it?
I think it is more to do with, a lot of it matters on what you're building. It's different for a B2B company, it's different for a B2C company.
Yeah.
I think that, so one, to sum it up, one, what, sort of what industry you're in. If you are a B2B fintech, if you're a B2C ed tech, important to know, be able to analyze that. One. Two, what kind of a company are you looking to build? If we have founders who have built and sort of gained a lot of success in building the most important personality trait, which is aggressive folks, and say that I will not do with people who don't have that fire in them, point blank. There are some companies who have worked very well in being able to hire personalities who are laid back, yes ma'am, yes sir, who follow the founder because the founder knows this is what I want to do. So two is the type of personality trait you are building out for your team. Three is how much of a micromanager are you as a founder to say that we will go according to what I know and what I want to deliver, or versus being that person to say I think I work better when I get seven different perspectives and choose the one that I like the most in terms of going ahead with. So three is the kind of sort of person you are in terms of delivering. And I think four, last, is more about being actually having that connection to the reality, being able to say that is this something that is working, is this something that is really delivering, am I going the right way? Because most of the times in this journey, founders forget on where they are going versus where they want to go. And as long as you, which is where the whole data back chief of staff role comes into the picture, because that is constantly going to tell you on what's working, what's not. I think that is the last one. But keeping all of these things in mind, it's important to know that if you are as a founder for the first 1,000 days, I think that is the core number. First 1,000 days on how you are as a founder will shape on what is it that you're going to be able to deliver and do. I think that would be the most, for at least for early stage company.
Understood. Got it. Now, moving on to the next segment where I would like to zoom out a bit on a broader landscape of work. Let's say we're talking about remote work, we're talking about AI, gig work. There's all of these coming into the picture. Tough to understand what's real, what's just a hype, what's just short lived. So, with all of these three, let's say remote work, AI, gig work, according to you, what do you think? What's the most overhyped trend in hiring today? And what do you think is here to stay for long?
All of these upcoming sort of AI companies, AI hiring companies who are trying to automate recruitment, in my opinion, it's practically not possible. It's not possible. It is might be working well for you right now. Again, what people don't understand are what I call recruitment dopamines, things that give you such a high for a temporary period of time, and then you end up being in a place to realize that, oh shit, now I need to look at another dopamine because this one is not working well. AI for automating recruitment, in my opinion, is one of them. I have seen companies come and go, and it is just not possible to sort of automate recruitment. You need consulting, you need biases, you need someone to tell you, hey, this is how the 100 B2C companies have gone wrong, this is where you can't go wrong. You cannot possibly be in that place. For me, one of the things is that it's great to automate some areas of recruitment which can make your work faster. Absolutely big yes. ATS has been doing great. I think it's a beautiful way of being able to smartly, strategically help you filter out your content, your database, which you weren't able to do earlier. We used to use Excel for the longest time in my consulting companies. We didn't have ways to be able to do it. I think that is great. Another great way of AI helping recruitment is the database collectors like Lucia and Single Hire and things like that, who are giving you numbers, right? I don't know how you did it, but when I was in my first days, we did not have the numbers of the sales head in Sunsilk at that time. So I had to call the Sunsilk landline to say, hey, I'm calling from IIM. I need to get through XYZ because they need to come for an lecture. I used to get through the landline. I used to tell them, this is a personal call. Can you give me your mobile number? Then get their mobile number, then add it to the database. That's how headhunting was actually happening at that time. But now you have all of these where a click on your LinkedIn profile gives their number, which is great, which I love. But still cannot take away from the fact that you can, you have these like AI for interviews, for example,
Yeah.
right? Where you are just big. In my opinion, it's just, even if you end up hiring someone who does well, I feel like if you have not spoken to the person and don't know the person, is a big no from like me. So I think there are some parts that we need to do, that we should automate. There are some parts where we need to be very careful on thinking that this can be a long term growth for us, which I don't think, in my opinion, it is. Another one that I love is video resumes. Amazing. Like, cuts away half of my time of being able to understand on who you are and how you do it. Still doesn't mean that I'm not going to have to filter you in other ways, right? But yeah, I think these would be my some examples.
Got it. Got it. I think I absolutely agree with what you're saying because I think they're trying to automate the wrong things while automating everything. I remember, I think I saw it on LinkedIn or somewhere, this humorous post where this lady was talking that, okay, I want AI to do my chores and so that I can do my artwork, not AI to do my artwork, so I do my chores. That's not what I want to do. So now another thing is with again the similar aspects with again AI, remote work, etc. Do you see VCs pushing for smaller tech heavy teams instead of traditional org structures? Have you seen any difference there?
Not really. I think it again depends on what kind of a product you're building and what is the starting thing that we need to move at. Like, when the VC is investing, there are sometimes where a product is pretty much ready and all you need to do is ship it out. So you don't need a very large tech team to start with immediately. To ship it out, you need more sales folks, and that's what they add to. But there are some companies where the idea and the GTM is not yet sort of fulfilled, for which you need a tech team, which is what they go into. So again, very subjective on what you're looking to deliver. But no, not really. It's not about just, I think we've reached that stage where it's not about just heavy tech teams to start with. I think everybody has realized that non-tech functions do equal, if not more sometimes, addition to the way that companies are successfully growing, than specifically only focusing on tech.
Got it. And since you are in the business of matchmaking people to startups, have you ever advised a candidate not to join a startup? Would love to hear a story if there's any.
Yes, of course, multiple times, multiple times. I think, again, what ends up happening in this space is just like how recruiters end up learning a flip of a candidate in the last round, for example, where the candidate has asked, I'm looking for a 20% hike, and the candidate says, I'm looking for a 50% hike, and you say, why? And they say, oh, just because I've been interviewing in multiple places and I realize that's how much I can get. And I already got a 35% hike, so I'm sure I can get a 50% hike, right? That flip is also there in founders. And the more in the last 5 years, the more founders, more employees that have turned into founders and started on their entrepreneurial journeys. Many a times, the pressures of multiple things around you as a founder makes you forget. And this is why I keep telling founders that you need to be very much in touch of the human that you are first, then the employee that you are, that you were, and then the founder that you are. You cannot, because you being a founder is temporary. That's a high that you have, which is not always going to be like that. You're not going to always have your coffee on your table. You don't expect someone to be following you constantly for something, right? Because you can at any point of time change and become an employee, and all of this is taken away. It's the title that is giving you your benefits. It's not you who is getting the benefits. Tomorrow, I mean, we have been in that situation, right, where we have seen Rahul Yadav get kicked off from housing.com, and suddenly you are a founder and suddenly you are no one. So I always tell founders to be in touch with their sort of human side, because what ends up happening is, many a times there was one founder who's looking to hire a CHRO, and the expectation was that the person is going to come and sort of change a very, very bad culture, like a culture that has been successfully bad for the last 3 years. While the numbers and the revenue can be great, it was a very bad workplace to be working. And I was very close to the founder, so I was constantly advising him on what to do. And they reached a stage where we realized that bringing people into this is me pretty much asking people to sign up for a life of overworking and hell. And there was this one girl who had just delivered a baby, come back from her maternity leave, and she was very strong, very very strong as a candidate. And I said, listen, I don't think this is the right place to be. And it was so good as an offer to get, especially for someone who's coming back from mat leave. And I was like, listen, there are opportunities that you are good for at your current stage of your personal life, your mental state, and there are some opportunities that you're not. And I just feel that this is not the time to get into this company today. And if were to take my opinion, I would say that hold off and find something else, even if it takes more time. But yeah, and honestly, there have been many, to be
Understood.
honest, because I don't think that, again, maybe I don't know if other companies think like this, but I don't think that my ethics is only towards the founder. I think
Yeah.
it should ideally be more towards someone who is changing their life and everything to move into another company. And if I am the person just to make a closure, if I'm the person to say, hey, yes, go into this, and then have them ruin their life, but tell them, oh, wait 3 months because then I don't have to give a replacement, in my opinion, that is going to come back and bite me at
Yeah.
some point. So I rather, not let that closure happen than let it happen and affect some.
Got it. I mean, love the empathy that you and your team carry when it comes to advising candidates. I think that's one of the underrated values or qualities that anybody recruiting has to have in them, in the best interest of course, the candidates and the founders, and in the long run for us, because we can sleep well when we know we have advised somebody right and not push them into a hole which is only going to be a dark place for them. So glad to hear where you're coming from. All right, time to switch gears. While we wrap up this conversation, I would like to do that with some quick rapid fire questions. Let's get started on this.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Okay, so you just have to pick one into two options that you'll have over the next 4 or 5 questions. So, starting with, what do you go for? Resumes versus gut feeling? What do you think wins?
Gut feeling.
Okay. Worst interview red flag? Candidate checks phone or candidate badmouths their ex boss?
Oh, bad mouths the ex boss. Big red flag.
So, checking phone is fine.
Checking phone is fine. I mean,
Okay.
we are distracted as it is, and it's okay. I can tell them not to do it, and then they won't do it, which is
Yeah.
fixable. But I don't
Yeah.
think the bad mouthing the bad boss is fixable.
Got it. Okay. I think I already have an answer to the next one, but I'll still ask, which is would you rather hire somebody with 10 years of experience but no hunger, or a hustler with 0 years of experience?
Always hustler.
Got it. Biggest resume lie that you see all the time?
Tough one. All of them are so well covered these days with templates that in most of the times I don't know. I think the biggest one possibly would be ready to relocate anywhere. I don't think anybody is ready to relocate, even if they say so, especially those coming from north to Bombay.
Yeah, fair. Okay, best interview hack. Candidates who do this, do you think will always impress you?
Asking me what is it that I want to do with my professional life in the next 5 years. Very few ask, but when they do, I really do feel that they are in this interview to learn more about me as a person and less about just the company, which everybody sort of goes on LinkedIn and reads. But
Yeah.
when someone asks me on how I want to grow as a professional, I also feel that they level themselves not as an interviewer and an interviewee, but as two people getting to know each other, which I love. So I feel that it's impressive. It makes me feel like, okay, great. I think this will go somewhere.
Okay. And the last one, are there specific questions that you think are underrated but reveal a lot about candidates' startup readiness?
I think one of them, there are a few, but I think one of them would be, asking them, have you thought about what are you going to do for the next 3 months in the company when you're going to join the company? Someone who can think ahead and be able to give me an answer. It doesn't have to be an approximate, it doesn't have to be the dead on number answer. But even if you come and tell me, if you're a sales guy and says that I plan to in the next 3 months increase the revenue to XYZ because I feel I've done it and I have that experience, I think it's a good strong one, similar to any of the other ones that are there. I think that's a good one, which helps me a lot. And I think the second one would be more in terms of how much runway do we have. think nobody asked this question. It's so important, irrespective of the level you're coming at. You just practically need to know how much money is there in the bank for you to be able to even understand. Okay, by layoff, मैं ही हूँ क्या first जाने में, you need to know. Nobody
Yeah.
asks only how much runway do you have, and
Yeah.
they feel that this is information that is not privy to them, but everybody should
Right.
very much know. So yeah, I mean, a couple more, but these two I think would be important ones.
Cool. Sounds good. With that, we wrap up this conversation. Sanam, thank you for dropping truth bombs, insider stories, and of course, practical wisdom. I know every founder, recruiter, or a candidate listening in has just walked away always sharper. But until next time, thank you so much.
Thanks, Shivani. It's been a pleasure. I had a blast, and I hope everything we discussed is helpful for anybody who's listening. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.